Wisconsin, we can't let that happen. We cannot sit this one out. We can't let this country fall backwards because the rest of us didn't care enough to fight. The stakes are too high for our country and for your future. And I am going to get out there and fight as hard as I can, and I know you are too, to make sure we keep moving forward. The other side would have you believe this election is a referendum on me, or a referendum on the economy, a referendum on anything except them. But make no mistake, this election is a choice. And the choice could not be clearer. Understand, for the last decade, the Republicans in Washington subscribe to a very simple philosophy. And I want to be clear, this is the Republican leadership in Washington. A whole bunch of Republicans cut regulations for special interests. Whether it's the banks or the oil companies or health insurance companies, let them write their own rules. You cut back on investments in education and clean energy and research and technology. So basically the idea was, if you just put blind faith in the market, if we let corporations play by their own rules, if we leave everybody else to fend for themselves, then America would automatically grow and prosper. But that philosophy failed. Because in the period when they were in power, understand this, from 2001 to 2009, job growth was slower than it had been in any decade since World War II. Between 2001 and 2009, middle-class incomes fell by 5%. The cost of everything from healthcare to college tuition just kept going up. And a free-for-all on Wall Street led to the very crisis that right now we're digging ourselves out. So it's not like we don't have a controlled experiment here. We have, they were in charge. We saw what happened. So I've had two main jobs since becoming president. To rescue the economy from this crisis, to clean up after their mess, and to rebuild our economy stronger than it was before.
Yeah.
And over the last 20 months, we've made progress on both these fronts. We're no longer facing the possibility of a second depression, and I have to say, Wisconsin, that was a very real possibility when I was sworn in. We had about 6 months where the economy was teetering on the edge, and we could have plunged into a second depression. Those are facts, because the other side isn't always interested in facts. To rebuild this economy on a stronger foundation, we passed Wall Street reform to make sure that a crisis like this never happens again. So that these reforms are going to end the era of taxpayer-funded bailouts forever. Reforms that'll stop mortgage lenders from taking advantage of homeowners. Reforms that'll stop credit card companies from hitting you with hidden fees or jacking up your rates without any reason. But we didn't stop there. We started investing again in American research and American technology and homegrown American clean energy, because I don't want solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars of the future built in Europe or Asia. I want them built right here in the United States of America. To help middle-class families get ahead, we passed a tax cut for 95% of working families. I want to repeat that. We cut taxes for 95% of working families, because if you were listening to the other side, you'd think we raised taxes. But, again, we deal in facts. And the fact is, we cut taxes for 95% of working families. We passed 16 different tax cuts for America's small business owners, who create the majority of jobs in this country. And by the way, Madison, let me just see a show of hands? How many people are under the age of 26 in this crowd? Every single one of you, when you get out of college, if you have not found a job that offers you health care, you're going to be able to stay on your parents' health care until you're 26 years old. So you don't end up taking the risk of getting sick and being bankrupt. We finally fixed the student loan system so that tens of billions of dollars of taxpayer subsidies that were going to big banks, they were acting as middlemen, and student loan programs were going through these financial intermediaries. They were taking billions of dollars in profits. We said, well, let's cut out the middleman. We'll give the loans directly to students, and that means millions more students are going to be able to take advantage of grants and student loans. We signed into laws making sure that we enforce equal pay for equal work, because I think my daughters should be treated just like somebody else's son. I even mentioned the fact that we have the largest expansion of national service so that young people can tap into their idealism and start working here in this country and around the world to make people's lives better. I haven't talked about the fact that we made sure that tobacco companies can't market their products to children. We have made progress. The hole that we're climbing out of is a deep one. I want you to understand the magnitude of what we've gone through. This is deeper than the last 3 recessions combined. Most of the jobs we lost took place before any of our economic policies had a chance to take effect. And on top of that, the middle class has been struggling for more than a decade. And jobs have been getting shipped overseas, and millions of families were still treading water. Millions are still barely able to make their bills and make the mortgage. I hear the stories every day. I read them in just heartbreaking letters that I receive each night. We do not quit, and we cannot forget that this nation has been through far worse, and we have come out stronger from war to depression to the great struggle for equal rights and civil rights. We do not quit. In every instance, progress took time. In every instance, progress took sacrifice. Change is going to come. Change is going to come for this generation. If we work for it. If we fight for it. If we believe in it. The biggest mistake we could make right now is to let disappointment or frustration lead to apathy and indifference. That is how the other side wins. And I want everybody to be clear. Make no mistake. If the other side does win, they will spend the next 2 years fighting for the very same policies that led to this recession in the first place. The same policies that left the middle class behind for more than a decade. The same policies that we fought so hard for to change in 2008. Just look at the agenda the other leaders, the leaders of the other party unveiled last week. They called this Pledge to America. That's what they called it. And in case you're wondering how serious they are about changing Washington, this pledge was actually written with the help of a former lobbyist for AIG and a former lobbyist for ExxonMobil. And when you ask them, well, where do they plan to find the $700 billion? Where's this money? Is it lying around? You didn't tell us about this. Where is it? They don't have an answer. But to pay for just a tiny fraction of this tax cut, they want to cut education by 20%. They want to eliminate 200,000 children from an early childhood education program like Head Start. They want to cut financial aid for 8 million college students, including some of the people who are out here tonight. This fruit tax tax cut for folks who don't need it and weren't even asking for it. At a time when the education of a country's citizens is the biggest predictor of its economic success, they think it's more important to give another tax break to people who made the Forbes 400 list. Now, I have to ask my Republican friends a question here. Do you think that China is cutting back on education? No. Do you think that South Korea is making it harder for their citizens to get a college education? No. These countries aren't playing for second place. And let me tell you something. The United States of America doesn't play for second place either. We play for first place. This is an economic issue of our generation. Look, we have a different idea about what the next 2 years should look like. And it's an idea rooted in our belief about how this country was built. We know that government doesn't have all the answers to our problems. We don't believe that government's main role is to create jobs or prosperity. And one of the things that the other side's been able to do is to hoodwink a whole bunch of folks all across the country after we had to take emergency measures to clean up their mess to say, look, he's for big government. Government should do for the people what they can't do better for themselves. I believe in a country that rewards hard work and responsibility. A country where we look after one another. A country where I say, I'm my brother's keeper. I'm my sister's keeper. I believe in an America that gave my grandfather the chance to go to college because of the GI Bill. Scholarships and student loans like some of you are on. That's the America I know. That's the choice in this election. Instead of $700 billion tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires, we want to make permanent the tax cuts for middle-class Americans. You deserve a break. Instead of cutting education and student aid, we want to make permanent our new college tax credit that's worth $10,000 of tuition relief for each young person going to 4 years of college.